What is up, everyone? Today we're going to be talking about the UFC Fight Night in Paris and what I think, my predictions, going over the entire card. I'm going to talk more specifically about the main event and co-main and then quickly go through the rest of the fights. Because those two fights, both of those could be main events. The card is stacked for a fight night. Great fight night. 14 fights. But yeah, let's get into it. Moicano, show me the money versus BSD. I'm taking BSD, second round TKO. I'm going to make a separate video about BSD because he has become so underrated. And the reason I feel like people hate him and don't like him is because of Lucas Tracy. I'm just going to say that right now. And because other people, including me, were picking him against Poirier, which I don't care if that was the right pick. He was the right pick versus Poirier. I think he only lost because of staph infection. And I know people are going to say that's cope or whatever. But if you're on antibiotics, you have staph infection, your cardio and chin are not going to be good. And if you look at all of his other fights, his chin holds up. He has a good chin. He had good cardio. He pushed the pace. He still could have lost. But I feel like if he would have lost, it would have been in the 5th round, totally gassed, because he's never gone 5 rounds before. But still, talking about this fight, him versus Moicano. Moicano, I feel like if he wins, it's going to be a 5th round comeback submission. I don't think it's going to go 5 rounds. I don't think it's going to go into the 4th or 5th. And how their styles match up. So Moicano, he's a guy, he always wants to take it to the ground. He's a phenomenal grappler. BSD, also a phenomenal grappler. He was dominating Poirier in the grappling in their last fight. And I don't think Moicano is going to have much success there. I think the only time he's going to get BSD down is if BSD welcomes it to the ground, like he did versus Frevola, who's also on this card. I think that it's probably going to be a stand-up fight. Moicano, he is big for the division, but he's just too chinny. He is so chinny. It feels like he gets at least knocked down in every one of his fights. BSD, yes, he lost his last fight, but people forget he is a finisher. Even on the feet, he has great body kicks. I think he's going to be able to finish Moicano, hurt him on the feet. And even if it goes to a decision, that's going to win him rounds. Maybe he jumps on a submission if he hurts him, kind of how Islam did to Charles Oliveira. But I think that he's the better fighter. I still don't agree with the odds. I think it should be a little bit closer, but I am picking BSD. I'm pretty confident. Moicano, good fighter. Great to see his career get revived. I think even if he loses this, he should get the Paddy Pimblett fight in the UK. But yeah, I'm picking BSD, second round TKO. Okay, next up we have Imavov versus Brendan Allen. I'm picking Imavov by decision. At first, I was leaning towards Brendan Allen. The reason being is because it's a 3-rounder, and he literally could just get 1 or 2 takedowns and win the fight. Obviously, even without a finish. I don't think he's going to be able to finish Imavov. Definitely not on the feet. Maybe a submission. I don't think so. So I watched back a bunch of their fights, specifically about Chris Curtis. And Brendan Allen, he pretty much only won the fight. And I did think that he did win the fight. But he only won the fight because of the hamstring injury. And Curtis got injured last 10 seconds. Curtis is one of the unluckiest fighters ever. I mean, the headbutt against Gastelum. After that, the loss to Brendan Allen, which he would have won if he didn't get injured in the last 10 seconds. Stepped up on short notice, would have been a massive win for him. And then, obviously, the headbutt again versus Imavov. I mean, so unlucky. But if you watch back their fights with Chris Curtis, Brendan Allen, he is good on the feet. He was landing some good shots, and it was competitive on the feet. But he does have a chin problem, where even if he doesn't get finished, And Imavov, he hits hard. He's a good striker. He could and probably will hurt Brendan Allen. Where if it's a 3-rounder, even if he doesn't get finished, that's going to lose him the round. It's going to lose him the round. And if it's a close fight, that matters. And if you watch back their fights, Imavov, what he did to Chris Curtis, I get it was a doctor stoppage, all this other stuff. Man, he was dominating. And when I was watching Brendan Allen versus Curtis, even in the grappling, yes, Brendan Allen couldn't finish Curtis, neither could Imavov. But Allen, he was able to take him down, take the back. He has great back takes. And I watch Imavov's fight, and in the first round, he did the same thing to what Brendan Allen did, except he just was more dominant on the feet. I think Imavov, his takedown defense is good enough, and his get-up ability is good enough to not get submitted, to not get held down. And I think he's not much better, but he is better on the feet. I think in the striking and grappling, they're both about, it's a close fight because they're both pretty even. I think Imavov is just slightly better. I don't agree with the odds. I think that this should be almost a pick'em. But I think Imavov, he's going to take it. But yeah, I have him 29-28, split decision, plus it's in France. The judges are going to favor Imavov. I was watching his fight versus Buckley, and I think someone gave him the 3rd round, one of the judges, which if you watch back that fight is absolutely insane. But yeah. Next up, we have William Gomis versus Joanderson, Brito. Picking Brito. He's just an absolute finisher. They couldn't be more like polar opposite fighters. Gomis, extremely boring. I hope he doesn't win this one. Brito, he's a finisher. Gomis doesn't have the best cardio. I think Brito's going to finish him late in the fight. Either submission or knockout. I'm leaning towards knockout. Late rounds, 3rd round. All right, next up we have Kevin Jousset versus Bryan Battle. Picking Bryan Battle. I think that he just has, it's one of those fights where I just feel like he has way more finishing ability. I think that he's going to be able to finish Jousset in probably the 2nd round. He looked phenomenal in his last fight. His cardio is great. I think he's going to be able to push the pace, and I think that he's going to take this one. Next up, we have Miranda versus Charriere. I'm picking Charriere. At first, I thought he won his last fight versus Shepe. I was so angry because on that card, I picked like all my losses on that card. I think it was the Chris Curtis, Brendan Allen card. Every fight I got wrong was a fight that I thought my fighter won. And he looked amazing in that fight. I still think he could have won. The 1st round, swing round. 2nd round, he clearly won. 3rd round, he was winning until the last 30 seconds where Shepe landed some nasty ground and pound, stole the round. And it would suck because I know he was good enough to win that fight. He just made a few mistakes. Miranda, he's, I think, 1-1 in the UFC. His last win was like against I forgot who, like Shane Young, I think. Easy win. Yes, he is dangerous on the ground, but Charriere, he has phenomenal takedown defense, good get-up ability, nasty on the feet. I think he wins this one, and I think he's able to put away Miranda, maybe 2nd round, somewhere around there, is my opinion. But yeah, I think he's going to win. Okay, opening up the main card, we have Ziam versus Matt Frevola. I picked Matt Frevola in his last fight, and he got head kick KO'd. But, he could have won that fight. I know he got finished early, but, dude, he was such an idiot. He was, running against the fence with his hands down. Before he even got head kicked, I was like, oh, yeah, this dude, the head kick, it's right there. It was obvious. But he is good. He's good. He's a finisher. He obviously can get finished. I think Ziam, a little bit more of that French style, a little bit boring. Not much power. Not a great grappler. I think that Frevola is going to win this by knockout. I think he has more power. He can mix in the wrestling. and his striking is good enough to stand with Ziam. He doesn't have much to, I feel like, fear, but I feel like the same can't be said for Ziam. So yeah, I'm picking Frevola, the underdog, first round KO. Next up, we have Cutelaba versus Erslan. I'm picking Erslan by early first, second round KO. Cutelaba, I picked him in his last fight versus Felipe Lins. Horrible decision. Most of his fights, he just goes out there, tries to get finished, either gets the finish or most of the time he gets finished. And his last fight, though, was the complete opposite. He didn't throw a punch. He looked like he was just scared, and he just was like, okay, if I could just not get finished, this is a win. This is a win if I just don't get finished. Anthony Smith style. And he looked horrible, pathetic performance. I told myself I'm never picking this guy again, and I'm not going to. And if he can't beat Erslan, he has no place in the UFC. But yeah, I'm picking Erslan. First, second round KO. Next up, we have Oumar versus Jung. I think that he's going to win. Submission. Again, this one's kind of straightforward. There's a few matchups here. I think the French are going to be about even, win or loss, kind of. But this is like this matchup was made for C to win. He's a great grappler, kind of opposite of the usual French style. Jung, what's his worst quality? Submission, defense, takedowns, all that stuff. I see him winning this, finishing it. Yeah. Then we have Klein versus Roberts. Klein, his takedown defense was the best I've ever seen versus Thiago Moises, whatever. It was phenomenal. I think he even got a takedown himself. His last performance, I think it was in June, I'm pretty sure. Absolute masterclass. Roberts, Ultimate Fighter, he didn't win. He stepped up on short notice, so I think they just gave him a 2-3 fight contract, something like that. And unfortunately for him, he keeps on getting the hardest matchups in those few fights. This is another one. Klein doesn't get a ton of finishes, but I think this is a level of opponent where he will get a finish. He could just out-wrestle him. Kind of boring, 30-27. But I think Roberts, kind of chinny. I think Klein is going to put him away second round. Next up, we have Lapilus versus Morales. I'm going with Lapilus. I think that he's the much better striker. He's not much of a finisher, unfortunately. And I think his main thing is he's going to try to take it to the ground. I don't think he's going to be able to. We could see him maybe get some cage control time, something like that. But that's just not going to win him the fight. I think Lapilus, I think he's going to have a really good performance, 30-27. Yeah, that's my pick. Next up, we have Perez versus a Russian. I think that I'm not going to try to pronounce her name. She's, I believe, a stand-up fighter. Perez, her best quality is takedowns. The Russian, her worst quality is takedown defense. I think 30-27 Perez is the right pick. Again, I get a ton of WMMA fights wrong. I think I'm 1 for 10 in my last 10 WMMA fights. It's a different sport, though, than MMA. And yeah, I think that this one I'll actually get right. Perez, 30-27. Next up, we got Barez versus Victor. I'm picking Victor by decision. So I think that he actually, I believe he last fought Felipe Dos Santos on the Mexico City card in February. I think that he arguably won that fight. At first, I haven't rewatched it. Didn't do too much research on the prelims, not going to lie. But I think that he's good enough. He has really good cardio. Barez, he is more of a finisher. I just think what it comes down to is, can he finish Victor in the first round? I don't think he will. So yeah, I'm going with Victor. Next up, we have Cavalcante, if that's how you say it, versus Cornolle. I'm going to pick against the French in this one. I think, I don't even want to try to pronounce her name, Cavalcante, whatever. Her last fight, I can't believe that people think that she lost. If anything, when I heard 30-27, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I could see a 30-27 for her. But 30-27 for Nunes is absolutely insane. She arguably lost every round. I think that she's actually a good WMMA fighter. Yeah, not too much on this one. I always get WMMA fights wrong. This probably won't change, but yeah, I'm picking her. Okay, we're going with Oki, Aki, whatever, versus Duncan. I'm going to pick Oki. I think that he is faster, more powerful. I think Duncan, the way Duncan wins is like a 29-28 close decision, mixes up the wrestling. I think that I think his takedown defense is just okay. I don't think it's great. I think that he has good sprawls. He's good initially getting out. But once you have him against the fence and you're able to take him down, I don't think that he's the smartest at getting up. In his last fight, I thought that he won, but he made a lot of mistakes in that fight. He had a great first round, and then after that, 2 kind of close rounds. But I just think Duncan, he gets hurt, I feel like, in like almost all of his fights. And I think it's possible Duncan, yeah, he could have some control time, but Oki will be able, I think maybe he'll get like a knockdown or so. But yeah, I think he's going to win 29-28 off of damage. But yeah, that is all my picks for the UFC France Fight Night. I'm confident in some. This is a pretty hard card to predict. There is a few kind of gimme fights that's like, okay, there's an obvious winner, maybe 3 or 4 of them. The rest, though, kind of difficult to predict. A lot of close fights. But yeah, hopefully I do better than my last card, the Sphere card. That was the worst I've ever done in my entire life. Hopefully I could redeem myself. But yeah, that's it. Let me know who you got in the main event. But yeah.